This is Sarah with Posh Pooch Designs, and this is our live video chat. In case you don't know, I try to do this every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, have a video chat, and we try to answer questions that have been asked to me through the week, or and if you have any questions, of course, you can send them to me through email. You can post them on my page. You can post them on my YouTube, anywhere you want to. And I always say, if I don't have the answer, I will find it for you. And sometimes things that I take for granted that I think that people already know, they don't. And I forget that I've been crocheting, for such a long time, that there are some things that sometimes we don't know. And so I'm just letting you know, if you have a question. Good morning, Michelle. If you have a question you need answered, feel free to ask it. You can post it here. You can, like I said, you can post it anywhere. I have Ravelry, Etsy, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, any places, email. You can even post it anywhere, and I will try my best to find an answer for you. So today's topic is going to be talking about stitch markers. But before we get started, Sunday is Mother's Day, so I've got my mom cup. And did you know that if you turn mom upside down, it says wow? Someone said that to me when I got pregnant with my second child. They sent me a card, and they had handwritten that in there that said, turn mom upside down and she's wow. And I thought, what does that mean exactly? So anyway, my mom's celebrating Mother's Day in heaven this year. She's been in, this is her third Mother's Day in heaven, and I miss her terribly. But I feel so blessed to have had such a wonderful mama. Her and I are very close, and I love her so much. I still talk to her all the time, even though she's not here. I just talk to her. I wish she could answer back, but I know she's up in heaven, and she's not in pain anymore, and that's the thing. So that's why I've got my mom cup today with my coffee. I'm just drinking regular old hot coffee. Good morning, Crystal. Good morning, Stacy. So glad you're all here. Let's clink in. Be sure and clink in with your coffee. And like I said, today I was just a tad bit early, and I just have to confess to you, since the little snafu a couple of weeks ago where I couldn't get my app to work, I'm terrified that my app's not going to work. And so I get it all ready early, and then I sit here like, oh, I hope it works, I hope it works. Because you never know with Facebook, and I've really come to enjoy this time. Good morning, Whispering Spirits. Wow. Is that your name, or is that your Facebook page? Good morning, Karen. I'm so glad to see you all here. Like I said, I just have a great time talking with you all. And I have to share something really funny. A couple of weeks ago on one of my older live videos, because after we put them here on Facebook, I have some fun with them and tweak them a little bit. And good morning, Dawn. Does that say? Oh, Donnie. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm having a little trouble seeing everybody. Good morning, Susie. Clink, clink, clink. But anyway, someone posted on one of my older videos on YouTube that was a live video that I talk too much and I'm too perky. And so she's gonna give me a thumbs down. I was like, what a silly thing to say. I'm sorry I'm too perky. And I'm sorry I talk too much, but it is a live video. So anyway, maybe I should just sit here and smile. No, that's not gonna work. So anyway, I made my mom a virus shawl. Oh, that's awesome. That is a great pattern. And I've tried making it several times, but I haven't finished the project because I get some other thought in my head. The truth is of the matter is, I would like to know, good morning, Petra. I would like to know how many projects you have going at once. And yesterday I decided to clean out it's not dirty, it's just cluttered with a lot of yarn and a lot of yarn projects. And my husband came home from work yesterday afternoon, and I had yarn all over the family room, and he's like, how many projects do you have started? Good morning, Alexandra. Well, I counted. I had 91 projects that were either finished and needed to be written up, or tweaked a little, or started. So I made all these little zip bags, and I organized everything. So there's going to be some new patterns coming out soon. I can't help it. I love yarn. And when I go and get new yarn, I have to, you know, play with it and come up with some things. All right. So anyway, let's get into our discussion. So raise your hand if you hardly ever use a stitch marker. Okay. I hardly ever use one, but there are some good reasons to use them, and it really is a good idea to have them in your tool bag. But what is a stitch marker, right? So I went through my stuff. I have a lot of different kinds. I'm just going to show you. This is the typical stitch marker that I use. I like them. They're hard plastic. They can slide on. And I got these in a set from the Crochet Dude many years ago from Michael's. And this is my favorite kind. Okay, so I recently discovered, this is by Boy that makes the crochet hooks, that they have these jelly stitch markers. And I have fallen in love with using this kind because they're like a little circle. Let me grab one out of here. They're all hooked together. Like this. It's a little circle, and it's got a little tab and a little hole. And you just slide it on where you need it and snap it, and it stays put. But it also doesn't break because it's like a jelly, you know, like jelly bracelets or whatever. Looks like a little jelly earring. But I have come to really love those. Another kind I have are decorative, and these were made for me by a lady who does, oh my goodness, I can't remember her name now. Oh my goodness. I'm going to put the link because she does a great job. She designed these specifically for me. They're just little dog paws, and they have the little hook on them. And these are decorative, and these work great for crochet, but not so much for knitting. But I do like them. Another thing that I have are these, and these were sent to me as a gift. I don't know if you can see that. Let me turn it so you can see. It's got the letter on the bottom. And this is a really neat type of stitch marker to use when you're doing a project, but you don't want to leave a hook in the project. And they have the letter of the hook on the bottom. And you can just hook that like to your last stitch. And then you don't have to leave the hook in the project. And then you know what hook you were using. And that's a really good idea. She sent me like this whole bundle of them. Isn't this cool? And I just love them. They're so pretty. And I think these would be relatively easy to make too. And all of them have numbers on the bottom, or not numbers, the letters of hooks on the bottom so that I can mark my items. I should have done that. I found probably 25 or 30 hooks in those projects I was cleaning up last night. Okay, another kind, and this is the kind I use mostly with knitting, is it's got beads at the bottom, but the hook is a little bit different. Let me turn it so you can see it. And I hook it on, and then I bend it in just a little. And that helps it stay on the knitting needle. So those are some styles of stitch markers. There's plastic, there's metal, there's wire. There's tons of kinds. And it really depends on what you're going to do. Good morning, Tabitha. I missed you. Oh, thank you. She loves my videos. But it really depends on what you're going to use the stitch marker for and what project you're using, the type that you're going to need. So let me show you something here. Here is some knitting that I was doing. It's a little doll sleeve sweater arm. And if you look really close, it's got a little bit of a basket weave, and then it has you change stitches. And you can mark where you're changing stitches by putting your little stitch marker in. And then as you knit, you just slide it across, you know, because you go from needle to needle, and you can just slide it across. And that's one reason you need stitch markers. And in knitting, a lot of times you're adding or subtracting a stitch. And that's another reason that you need a stitch marker, because you need to mark sometimes where you added or subtracted, or the pattern changes like in cables, you know, to make sure you start at the same place. And so that's why they're called stitch markers, because you're marking the stitch. So that's one reason. And if you'll notice, these also have letters on the bottom, and that can be used for when you're not finished with the project, you want to leave your crochet hook. Now, those are, of course, for crochet, but I use them for knitting because I like the way the hook works. So that's one way that you can use a stitch marker. All right, so most of us crochet, right? I mean, we all knit. Some of us knit too, like me, but most of us crochet. And so, yes, this is a live video, Wanda. And so the next thing that I do, let me show you a couple of things. One thing that I use stitch markers for is when I have to chain a long beginning chain, and say you have to chain 100 stitches or 100 chains, and you lose count. Well, what you can do is you can put the stitch marker, for instance, if you have to stitch, say 100, you can put a stitch marker every 10 stitches, and then you don't have to count over and over and lose your place. And so that's another reason that these jelly stitch markers are really great. Marking your stitch. Okay, now another area where you would use a stitch marker is when you're stitching what an AMI is, where you're stitching in continuous rounds. You're not joining and chaining one, you're just stitching in a continuous round. And that's where I like this kind the best, because you're moving it a lot. And so every row, you're going to slide that in there. Then you can stitch whatever the pattern calls for. And then when you get to the next row, you take this out and slip it in. And if you'll notice, I have a string going through there. And this is because if you don't have a stitch marker, but you want to mark your stitches, all you have to do is do your round, and then when you get to where your yarn is over, like this, here's your yarn, then you just flip that yarn to the other side and continue your continuous rounds. And then when you're all done and you reach, this just slides out. And you can do that if you don't happen to have any stitch markers. And sometimes if they're falling out or you're struggling a little, I kind of like using that piece of yarn going through there, especially if I'm doing something where I'm constantly, you know, like making a long doll leg or a big ball or something, and that stitch marker doesn't want to stay put. And so that's when I use that piece of yarn. And you just take another piece of yarn, a scrap that's laying around, that's a different color so that you can spot it. AMIs and continuous rounds, for me, are the hardest when it comes to keeping track of my stitches. And so that's another way that you can use a stitch marker. There are lots of other reasons that you might want to use a stitch marker also. For instance, if you're making something with a V shape like this, and then every row you're going to have to add something different in that V, but maybe it's single crochet, or you keep getting lost as to where that V stitch is, put that stitch marker in there, and then you'll know each row, okay, that's where I need to add that additional stitch. So a stitch marker can be, whoops, hair on my lip. A stitch marker can be a great tool. It can help ease some of your frustration. And for instance, when you're knitting something like this, and say, you know, there's a basket weave stitch and you want to change, did I make that stitch or did I not? And you're studying and you're studying. And if you've got that stitch marker in there, you know that's where you need to make that stitch. Hopefully you put it in the right spot. So anyway, the stitch markers are perfect for knitting. And the truth is, I use them more in knitting than when I'm knitting than when I crochet. When you're crocheting in a circle, or where you're chaining, like chain 3 and turn, that's not really necessary to use a stitch marker, but sometimes a stitch marker might be able to help you, and so that's why it's a good idea to have them around. Another good place to use a stitch marker is if you're doing a crochet cable, to help you remember where you started and stop that cable and where you turned. Another area to do, a good idea to have stitch markers is for when you're doing the chevron or shell afghans or pillows or something, because sometimes you can get your count off if you don't do it exactly right on the end, and then you can get your count off. So if you put that stitch marker when you make your corner on the top, you'll know that's where you made that corner on the top. And don't feel bad if you need to use them. They're a tool that can help you. Michelle says she has some fancy ones, but she can't find it. Safety pin. That's right. She mentioned a safety pin. A safety pin or a paper clip are both good things to use if you don't have a stitch marker. That's why I just love this one. These that I found, they weren't even very much, like $3 or $4. And I found these at Walmart of all places. And it's just a little, comes in this neat little container. And there's a whole bunch in there. And they have become my new favorite stitch marker because, let me open them again, because they're like a jelly. Let me get one that's a little lighter so you can see it. They're like a jelly. Like I said, they have that little hole and they have a little tab. And you put it in and close that tab. If you're going to be moving it around a lot, don't close the tab. But if it's something that you want to close the tab, then you can. It's just really versatile. And I love that they're made out of this jelly bendy stuff because they're not going to break. And that's one thing, you know, I said this is my favorite kind to use before I found those. And I do like these because they're easy to get on and off. But they have the tendency to break if it's sat out in dry area. Of course, I live in Colorado, and we're in the upper desert, and so it's dry. And so these can break on you. So let's bottom line it. That's what my husband tells me all the time. Okay, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is stitch markers are a great tool to have in your box. In your toolbox, or your crochet box, I should say. I always call my crochet box my toolbox because it is my tools. And so they are a great thing to have. You know, the ones like this that were made for me, I am going to be doing a video. I'm hoping to get it done either tomorrow or Thursday, depending on some of my appointments. And I'm going to show you how to make some out of polymer clay and these clips, and how to put the letters on, because I think this one is great that has all the letters of your crochet hooks. And when you're in the middle of a project and you don't remember what hook you're on, you go, oh, and then you kind of guess and it doesn't work out. Well, if you put one of these on the last stitch that you worked on your project and it's got an H or an I or a Q or whatever, you know what hook you used. Now, I know that a lot of hooks are different, and I have probably thousands of them, but it also gives you a general idea. And the truth is, you know, you probably will remember once you get working with it what hook you did use with it. And the truth is, if it doesn't look right, then you can change hooks. But this is just a good tool to help you. My thing about crochet, knitting, and art, even painting or anything else that I try to craft, is to work smarter, not harder. I'm not all about getting it done quickly, but I am about getting it done easily. I don't want to have to work really, really hard. Now, sometimes I love the challenge of a hard pattern, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about don't let yourself get frustrated. Don't let it be, become a thing where you go, I am not working this, and throw it aside. Use the tools that you've got, and if you don't have stitch markers, like Michelle said earlier, use a paper clip or a safety pin or a piece of yarn like I did to mark your stitches. So that's why it really is a good idea to have some stitch markers around and to use them. All right, so what's new this week at Posh Pooch Designs? Well, yesterday I posted the new square. This is our May Emerald square. And I did everything in the lighter green, but the original pattern is in green. And this is a free pattern, photo tutorial, and video that is new this week. And I also wanted just to remind you that every month we're doing a 6-inch square. And you can find those on my blog or YouTube or on Ravelry. I set up a bundle. So if you go to Sara Sach Posh Pooch Designs on Ravelry, and you click on it, there's some little bundles at the top. And I add all the new squares to the bundles, and you'll be able to find them all there as well. All the squares are 6 inches. We're doing one each month, and they're easy. They're not hard. I wanted to make them, they're not beginner patterns, but I wanted to make them easy but interesting. And each month, the new square is inspired by each month's birthstone. This was January garnet, February amethyst, March aquamarine, April was the diamond, and then of course May is the emerald. And so those are a lot of fun, and we're doing one each month. It gives you plenty of time to practice and get it if you want to. And then in January of next year, 2018, we're going to do a project together with our squares. You don't have to do it. It's just something fun. And the truth is, the project that I'm going to do, you can do with any 6-inch square. So that's new this week. Another thing we're going to do this week is the summer men's beanie. It can be made in a beanie or a slouchy. And I was telling someone about this, and they're like, why in the world would a man need a beanie in the summer? Well, you obviously don't live in Colorado. You go up in the mountains in the summer, you need a little beanie. And it's a men's sizes, but women can wear this too. This one's actually one I like that I wear. This one's made out of cotton. And this other one that's the original pattern, oops, got stuck on my square, is made out of worsted weight. So you can do worsted weight or cotton on that. Hopefully we'll get that done this week. Now the one thing I've been waiting on is the doggy diaper pattern. And this is the doggy diaper. It sits like this. This is a little tail hole. And then you use, of course, a lady's feminine adhesive pad to go inside there. And we've been working out the details, and the buttons aren't on this yet. And this is the small, extra small, and this is the small. And we also have another sizes and 3 sizes, and we're working on getting it all worked out. And I'm hoping maybe by Monday to be able to have this pattern ready for you. It's been I did the dog belly band, and a lot of people use those to keep their dogs from marking. And then I had another pattern that I was working on for the little girls. And so it's a little more intricate, so it was taking a little bit more time and making sure it's tested because we want to get it right, you know. All right, so that's the new things going on this week. And I have one more thing I want to show you. And that is, this week I got Bernat Baby, or Tiny. This is the Bernat blanket yarn, but it's in Tiny. And the neat thing about it, I got the peach and then a peach stripe. And the neat thing about it is it's soft and everything, just like the Bernat yarn, only it's in the Tiny. And I have a project that I'm going to do with that that's going to be a little closer to fall. So that's something new that Bernat came out with. I'm not being paid by Bernat. I just found it. I love yarn. And most of the time when I show you yarn that I've gotten in, I've paid for it. I don't. I used to get yarn from different yarn companies, and I don't do it anymore. Mostly because I want to be free to do all yarn companies and come up with my own ideas and not be told, I'm sending you this yarn, make something for this or something. Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit of a rebel. I want to do it my way, you know. So anyway, that's our live video today. I'm so glad you all stopped in and watched us live. And if you don't know, every Tuesday, unless you know something happens or I'm out of town or on vacation or something, every Tuesday at 9:30 Mountain Central Time AM, we try to have a live video. And we discuss questions and answers and yarn and patterns and videos and lots of fun things. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them here or anywhere on my sites, and I will do my best to find you an answer. So, if your mama's still around, be sure and spend some time with her because you only get one. And you all have a wonderful Mother's Day. And I'll see you next week.